Good afternoon, thank you. On behalf of the entire University at Buffalo community, it is my honor to welcome Governor Hochul back to UB. As always, we are extremely grateful for Governor Hochul's leadership. All of us at UB would like to thank the Governor for her steadfast support of our mission of academic and research excellence as a SUNY flagship university. And today especially, we would like to recognize her for her sustained dedication to environmental justice. This issue has been central to our scholarly community for 5 decades, dating back to the public health crisis of Love Canal. As a result, UB is recognized statewide, nationally, and globally for our environmental advocacy and our action to reduce the harmful effect of climate change. In fact, when Vice President Kamala Harris visited UB past year, she described our environmental research and practices as, and I quote, a model for our country. Our work is taking place across campus and across the disciplines, including UB's Renew Institute, whose researchers study water, renewable energy, pollution, and other pressing issues. It is taking place in our law school's Environmental Justice Clinic, which addresses state, national, and international policy. From our leadership in constructing green buildings, to our composting program, to our popular bike share, our scholarly community is actively decreasing our carbon footprint for a healthier world. As another meaningful example, the solar arrays you see across the street and across campus have resulted in UB's becoming one of the higher education's largest on-campus producers of renewable energy in the country. Indeed, our holistic approach to climate action has led to a 35% reduction in UB's baseline emissions, and we are on our path to achieving net zero emission by 2030. I know that all of us are excited to hear from the Governor about the meaningful impact this act will have on the health, vitality, and prosperity of our region and state. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Governor Kathy Hochul to UB.
Hello, fellow climate warriors. It is great to be back in my hometown once again. And Dr. Tripathi, you have been an incredible steward of this institution. You've taken it to heights that we never could have imagined, but also I thank you for your many years of service as co-chair of our Regional Economic Development Council, which you became the face, along with Howard Zemsky, of the early years when I worked closely with you, to really work hard to bring new businesses to this area, as well as new students and new faculty. So thank you for your leadership in the climate space. A lot of university professors and presidents and trustees don't always view themselves as having such a leadership role, and I'm so proud of the way you've embraced this. So let's give another round of applause to our president, Satish Tripathi. I want to thank many elected officials who've joined us here today. We have County Executive Mark Poloncarz, I believe. If not, he's on his way because I just saw him. Mark Poloncarz. We also have Supervisor Brian Kulpa has joined us. Brian Kulpa we're in his town of Amherst right now. A little further from home is Supervisor Randy Hope. We also have all the way from Chautauqua County, PJ Wendell, our county executive. PJ, are you in the room? PJ, good to see you. Shelley Stein from the Genesee County Legislature. Shelley, are you here? Hi, Shelley. We also have Steve Stout, the Regional Economic Development Chair, who's in the place of Satish Tripathi. So I want to thank him for his leadership also at Canisius College. And any elected officials I've not hit. I know our state legislators are where they're supposed to be, which is in Albany right now. So they were invited. They're great champions in this region, but this is also the final week of session, so they have a little bit of work to do, which is great, and we're proud to work with them. But I also have an amazing dream team helping run this state. And I want to thank, first of all, our Commissioner of DEC, Basil Sagos, for, I see him, seems like every day of the week, for his leadership in this space. Doreen Harris, the President and CEO of NYSERDA, another real national leader in what we're doing here. Mike Hale, the Executive Vice President of the Environmental Facilities Corporation. Mike, thank you for what you do. Eric Kulisate, our Commissioner of Parks and Recreation and Historic Preservation. Thank you. We also have Ruth Ann Visnaskis as our champion on housing and community renewal. Such an incredible leader. I want to thank Ruth Ann Visnaskis for leading homes and community renewal. Katie Brennan, the President and Executive Director of the New York State Office of Resilient Homes and Communities. Thank her for being here. You're only used to seeing her during snowstorms, but she comes when the weather is good as well, and that is our DOT Commissioner, Marie-Therese Dominguez. Thank you. There's not always snow on the ground, Commissioner. See this? And Tim Hogues, Buffalo Zone, Pride and Joy, our New York State Civil Service Commissioner, Tim. We also have a number of students who've joined us today. Are they getting school credit for this? I hope they're not getting in trouble, right? I'll sign any notes if I have to. We have earth science students from Nichols, from Riverside, from Niagara Wheatfield. Let's give them all a round of applause for our students. Yes, I was once a student, and I was one of the first students to create an ecology club in my middle school back when we had Lake Erie was not at its finest. Those of you who are old enough to remember what Lake Erie was like, somehow we were told it was okay to swim in it, and no one seemed to notice that by night you could see the molten lava being discharged from the Bethlehem Steel Plant, or the fact that the sky, we thought the clouds are supposed to be orange from the discharge into the skies. And so we had that going on where I was growing up, but also Love Canal, which was the genesis for the Superfund, and I think Congressman John LaFalce, who was a state leader but also became a member of Congress back then, and all the people who helped create the first Earth Day and the first ecology clubs. And so all of you are carrying the torch that was passed to you from the old people in this room who came before you but understood back then that we can no longer continue polluting the gifts we've been given, because the effect was horrific. We did turn the page. We were able to stop the excessive pollution of our air and our waterways, but so much work remains, and that's what we're here to talk about. That's why I'm here today in Buffalo to officially launch the statewide listening tour regarding our $4.2 billion bond act, and that is a huge accomplishment for this state. Because coming out of local government and being a local activist, I understand how important it is to listen to people on the ground. Yes, we have brilliant people in Albany, but they're also smart enough to know to come out to communities like Buffalo and 10 places around the state and virtual tools to get all the ideas you have on how we can lead this nation and lead our state into a better future for our children. So these sessions are pivotal. They're critically important. And I want to say that we passed in this state just a year and a half, last fall, the state's and the nation's largest environmental bond act in history. So we made history right here in the state of New York. We've waited too long. The time is now to take dramatic and bold action. So now, as a result of this, we have billions of dollars to invest in critical environmental and community projects. And yes, it was bold and it was ambitious. There was a plan to have a $3 billion bond act on the ballot before I became governor. But seeing what was happening to our planet and all the ways we've seen climate change have detrimental effects on our environment, I said, I don't know that $3 billion is going to be enough. We raised it $1.2 billion more to $4.2 billion, and we did that. The legislature, I thank them, but also I thank the people of this state who went to the polls and had within their hands the power to decide the future, whether or not we're going to lean into a different future or be held captive to the days of the past. Because our generation, the future generation sitting here, We're the first generation to really feel the effects of climate change. We saw it coming, we talked about it, but now it has arrived. But we're also the last generation to really do something meaningful about it. And that's what this Bond Act is all about. We have had so many once-in-a-century storms, literally back to back to back. My first days on the job, New York City was hit with not one but 2 hurricanes. New York City, more hurricanes than the state of Florida had had to that date. Hurricane Ida. I saw the devastation firsthand. I saw people flooded in their homes, drowned in their homes. 13 people lost their lives in New York because of hurricanes back in August and September of 2021. I saw train tracks buried in 10 feet of mud, disrupting transportation, homes that were uninhabitable, record rainfall over 2 days, and then upstate. I saw catastrophic flooding from Lake Ontario back in 2017, and everyone said, well, this is bad, but this is what we call a 100-year event, so we're good for a while. Guess what happened 2 years later? Another 100-year event. I'm not buying the 100-year event label anymore. It just doesn't seem to work because Mother Nature isn't paying attention to it. And so we broke records every single year in the terms of damage and velocity of the waves, and the damage that was done was horrific. So reality is we shouldn't be shocked anymore. We can't be shocked by the scale or the frequency of these so-called unforeseen events because they're no longer unforeseen. But maybe they weren't foreseen to enough people in our country. But they're seen by us here in the state of New York. And while we can't control it, we can prepare and control how we prepare and what we do to be ready. So from Buffalo to Brooklyn, we're going to continue fighting and preparing for the effects of climate change. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, first you take $4.2 billion and put it in the right places. And we're going to strengthen critical infrastructure, protect our communities from these storms and the severe flooding. We're already building a strong track record toward getting these projects underway and funded, including right here in the Buffalo region. Think about the village of Depew, rehab sewer lines to help the overflow during high rain events. I've seen the flooding on the streets in Depew. This is an area we can help mitigate that. North Chautauqua Lake, we're doing improved treatment systems to help reduce the pollution in that beautiful lake. I've spent a lot of time in Chautauqua Lake as a child. It's gorgeous. How about zero emission buses that transport our students? They're not standing at the bus stop inhaling all the fumes. We can make those changes right now. So we're going to be jump-starting a whole new level of collaboration with the people on the ground, the elected leaders, our advocates, and people who are involved in the science of this. So we're going to avert future disasters, but also we need to protect vulnerable populations. Those who don't feel they have the political voice, the political clout to make sure their voices are heard. Because all too often, these are the communities that bear the brunt of these cataclysmic events. So 35%, at least 35%, perhaps upwards to 40% of the Bond Act funding will be directed toward disadvantaged communities. It's also not just preparing for the storms, it's about protecting our magnificent natural beauty that we have right here in the state. So looking at our open spaces and how we can protect them, more spaces for recreation and ways to improve the quality of life. I have been to more state parks, I know our commissioner knows this, even before I became governor. It's when you grow up in a family, started in Lackawanna in a trailer park, you don't have a lot of money for luxury vacations, but we have magnificent parks. And that's why I had a chance to explore everything from hiking along the Niagara Gorge to jumping off the cliffs. I don't recommend that. Actually, it's probably not allowed anymore ever since we did this. Into the Letchworth Gorge. Wonder why I'm such a risk taker? That's what all started. But I've explored all our magnificent assets. But they don't stay magnificent without people being involved and putting the money and protecting them and enhancing them. Also, we're looking at this as a job-creating opportunity. Again, those who have that history of living in Buffalo, when for much of my young life, the phrase was, last one out, turn out the lights, because so many people left once the steel plants and the industries left. There were not jobs here in Western New York. I lost all my siblings. They went to other states in search of the American dream, and they wanted to stay. This initiative is projected to create 84,000 good-paying jobs throughout the state, and that'll include labor provisions. Labor is going to be protected. So you don't have to choose between environmental preservation and economic prosperity. They're intertwined. They're not inconsistent. They're intertwined. So this bond act will continue building on last year's investments in our state budget, which are historic. $500 million for clean water infrastructure, magnificent. $400 million for the Environmental Protection Fund, and over $200 million for our state parks. And so I know that those are important investments to make now. But also, new buildings that go up. This is our opportunity to really start making real changes. We are going to have all new buildings built be zero emissions building construction. Think about that. Think about that. Buildings are some of the largest emitters of carbon, and we can make those changes just by saying, going forward, this is how it'll be done in a smarter, better way that protects the environment. We're laying the groundwork for a cap and invest program that'll reduce the pollution, but also create the resource to help offset the costs for the communities as we do this going forward. So we're working on getting the money out the door as soon as possible. Everybody knows how impatient I am. Everybody, all my commissioners know, okay, start spending it. I also see our DMV commissioner in the second row. Mark Schroeder is here from South Buffalo. I'm sorry I didn't catch you. The DMV is very important in this. Don't forget that. He's all about the transportation and the vehicles on our roads, making sure that they are also not emitting pollution. So I want to thank him for what he does. But even during Earth Week, we committed $425 million to help communities with their aging infrastructure and sewer lines. It's often the things you don't see that are the most expensive, and they're too prohibitive for local communities. I knew this in my town. We never had enough money. Randy Hochul is here. Do you have enough money now, Randy? Okay, you will. Don't worry about it. It's always those expensive infrastructure components that when they work, you don't think about them, but when they don't, it is cataclysmic. Go visit Mount Vernon. Go visit Mount Vernon. Go look up the documentary on Mount Vernon where we invested $250 million to help clean up this small community, this disadvantaged community, helping them recover. So that's how we can make a profound difference in people's life, by just taking care of these basic needs and helping relieve the burden from our localities as well. So what we're doing here today, we have many voices here. I see Reverend Blue from the NAACP here. I want to recognize him for his voice. We have to unlock the power of what we did at the ballot box. This wasn't necessarily a foregone conclusion. A lot of people mobilized. They understood the urgency of this. And many times we can't get people to vote for individuals or elected officials, different races, but when you put their children's future on the ballot and say this is about protecting for our young people today, but also so their kids and grandkids will not look back and say, why didn't you do something about this? That's the world I grew up in. When I saw all that pollution, growing up, we just took it as a basic fact of life growing up in Western New York, that there were jobs here. If you wanted those jobs, you had to deal with the effects on the air and the water. People didn't know any better. Today we know better. We're living the effects. The warning sounds have been heard, and we're responding. We are the first responders to protect our planet, our climate, and our future from going up in smoke. So I want to thank everybody for bringing your ideas to this forum. We'll be doing this again all over the state. You'll see the impact of your vision, how you care about the community, how you think we should be spending this money. And this is why this listening session is so important. I wanted to kick it off in person. I want to thank people like Kelly St. John, who's Buffalo's first ever he's the climate action manager. She works hard. Daniel Hamlin is here, expert engineer, who designs drinking water treatment centers. And again, all of our students who came here and helping us up invest in all this. So I want to say this, we've got work to do. We've got work to do. It's time to roll up our sleeves. And once you're part of the solution, instead of being part of the problem, there's an incredible sense of value. All of us can bring value to this conversation. All of us can truly, truly make a difference. And that's what I'm asking all of you today. Leave here today recommitted as the climate warriors we need, the agents of change we've been waiting for. Let's go forth and do great things. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, the Director of Policy and Strategy at the Nature Conservancy, Jessica Otni Mahar, and I want to thank her for all the work she has done. The Nature Conservancy has been incredible in helping us get this over the line, as well as many, many other environmental action groups. I want to thank her for representing all of them. Jessica, it's all yours.
Thank you, Governor Hochul. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with you today to celebrate the passage of the Bond Act and the incredible promise that this measure holds for communities across New York. And it's a special treat to be here at UB, my alma mater. I'm just thrilled to be with you all today. Thank you to UB. Yes. And the governor talked about a little bit of this, but there was so much promise, not only in the Bond Act, but in what was done this year in our state budget. $400 million for the Environmental Protection Fund. Governor Hochul made that funding level priority last year. That's history. That's the highest level of funding that has ever been appropriated for that program. And this is the money that conserves our Great Lakes, our forests, our parks. It supports environmental justice. It supports zoos and botanical gardens, places like the Buffalo Zoo, really amazing institutions that educate our youth. And are wonderful for recreation. It supports local recycling and community services, so thank you for that. The governor and the legislature also included $500 million for clean water infrastructure. You know, this is key here in this region of Western New York, but also statewide. We cannot build the cities of the future for our kids and our grandkids on top of, Victorian infrastructure. We need to make sure we're upgrading our infrastructure for clean water, for swimming, for fishing. And then we did the all-electric buildings bill, which is just incredible, making sure that we're fueling our buildings off of clean fuels and a transmission system and energy system that NYSERDA and others in DC are working so hard to upgrade, which is going to be really an incredible product. And then finally, I would be remiss if I didn't say, this governor is investing in the experts that it takes to get this work done. These things don't just happen. Our state environmental agencies needed an infusion of people power, and this governor committed to hundreds of new staff to make sure that we could carry out these programs and do things like we're doing today, where we're interfacing with people in communities, listening to what's needed, and really unleashing the power of New York State. So thank you, Governor Hochul, for your leadership. It's incredible, and the Nature Conservancy is just thrilled to partner with your administration. Thank you. So today, we're here to celebrate that New Yorkers overwhelmingly approved the Clean Water, Clean Air, Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act with more than 2/3 of the vote this past November. We made history. This was the largest bond measure in state history, the largest environmental measure on the ballot anywhere in the United States of America last election cycle. And the Nature Conservancy was proud to work alongside hundreds and hundreds of partners in New Yorkers for Clean Water and Jobs with the Vote Yes campaign. It was one of our highest priorities in the country this past November. It's been a long time coming. I remember when the governor pulled us together in the Capitol in 2019 when you were lieutenant governor, really to sit around the table and think about what it would take to get something like this done, what we could each contribute. And we were delayed because of the pandemic, but good things come to those who wait. It got bigger and better with your leadership. And we never gave up despite the long haul, and we're determined to deliver. And I'm happy to say that under Governor Hochul's leadership, we will be delivering now. It's $4.2 billion for clean water, clean air, and good jobs, like we just heard. This is something that 67% of New Yorkers came out and supported. There's not a lot that 67% of New Yorkers agree on these days. But they really, people understand that making investments like this is critical to making sure that our kids and our grandkids have a future where they can raise their families here and they can thrive. It's why 300 organizations, environmental groups like my own, but labor organizations, religious groups, civic groups, businesses, municipal leaders, thank you all. There were many supporters here in the room today who made this happen, came together to support this. It's a tremendous opportunity for New York to strike while the iron is hot and leverage massive federal funding that's on the table right now from Congress. to do things like modernizing our infrastructure, which we heard about, conserving wildlife habitat, creating parks, creating jobs. These are basic things that New York needs to move into the future. And as the governor mentioned, there's another reason this Bond Act is historic. This is the first time in state history that a portion, at least 35%, if not 40%, will go to disadvantaged communities. These are the communities that have been subjected to the most pollution over time. They're ready. They're ready for less asthma. They're ready for less heart disease. They're ready for less heat stroke. Yes. They're ready for less lead poisoning, less pollution, and this Bond Act will help deliver those things, a cleaner and healthier future to them. So this listening tour is really exciting. I know I'm a nerd about this stuff, but I'm really excited. I know you're excited. This is a unique aspect of this governor's leadership, and I think, as she noted, being a former local government official, it's not just about passing legislation in Albany. We all love to do that. That's exciting. We love campaigns. Those are exciting. But it's about getting those words on paper to come to life and visiting with communities, speaking to people, listening to people, and hearing about how we can do better, how we can maximize the impact of programs like this in communities across the state, from here in Buffalo all the way to Brooklyn. So that's what today is all about. Thank you, Governor Hochul, for your thoughtful leadership, and I'm excited to meet many of you today. Thank you so much.